The Pacific Ocean moves without witness across 8,000 kilometers of empty water. The waves repeat themselves. No coastline interrupts the pattern. Between Mexico and the nearest inhabited land, there is only surface and depth. Wind crosses the water without reference. A human standing at sea level would see nothing but horizon in every direction. Clipperton Island exists as a geological irregularity. A ring of coral 2 kilometers wide surrounds a lagoon. The atoll rises 3 meters above the waterline at its highest point. The land is porous and sharp. Vegetation consists of scattered coconut palms and low grasses. The soil holds little moisture. During the wet season, rain accumulates in the lagoon, which remains brackish and undrinkable. Thousands of seabirds nest on the coral. Crabs cover the surface. The smell of guano is constant. The island is 1,000 kilometers from Acapulco. French navigators claimed the atoll in 1858. They circled it from their ship and read a proclamation to the empty shoreline. The United States annexed it in 1892 under legislation concerning bird droppings. American miners attempted to extract guano but found the operation unprofitable. Mexico evicted them in 1897 and placed a flag on the coral. Britain arrived in 1899 with a mining company. They built structures and planted additional palms. By 1910, the market had collapsed. The British withdrew their workers, leaving one caretaker and his family. Mexico maintained its territorial claim. In 1905, the government sent 13 soldiers to occupy the island. They were accompanied by wives and servants. The assignment was to prevent foreign incursion. Ramon Arnaud arrived as military governor in 1906. He was an officer in the Mexican army. His wife, Alicia Rovira, came with him. They had children on the island. The British caretaker remained in place. Supply ships arrived from Acapulco every 2 months with food, mail, and materials. In 1906, Mexico constructed a lighthouse on a rocky prominence. The structure was 30 meters tall. A keeper named Victoriano Alvarez was assigned to maintain it. He lived alone at the base of the cliff below the light. He was reclusive and did not participate in the colony's social routines. The other colonists had little contact with him. By 1914, approximately 100 people lived on Clipperton. Most were connected to the military garrison. A small vegetable garden had been established in imported soil. The structures included wooden houses and storage sheds. Children attended informal classes. The isolation was understood to be temporary. The supply ships were regular. In 1910, revolution began on the Mexican mainland. President Porfirio Diaz was deposed. Fighting escalated across the country. Supply chains became unreliable. Ships that had serviced remote outposts were reassigned or destroyed. Communication networks collapsed. In early 1914, a supply ship arrived at Clipperton. It was the last one. The colonists waited. The schedule had been disrupted before. Arnaud believed another ship would come. Weeks passed. The stored food was rationed. The colonists began fishing more frequently. Bird eggs were collected. The limited coconut harvest was divided carefully. The vegetable garden, exposed to salt spray and poor soil, had already failed. Months accumulated. No ship appeared. Arnaud imposed discipline. He maintained the routines of the garrison. Men stood watch. The lighthouse operated on schedule. The colony organized its resources. There was no radio. The only boat was a small rowboat with minimal fuel. Rowing to the mainland would take weeks if it were possible at all. Currents and waves made the attempt improbable. Arnaud decided to wait. Scurvy appeared first among the men. Vitamin C was unavailable. Coconuts provided insufficient nutrition. The symptoms began with fatigue and bruising. Gums swelled. Teeth loosened. Old wounds reopened. Weakness progressed. One soldier died, then another. They were buried in deep pits beneath the sand to keep them from the crabs. The women and children showed symptoms more slowly. Their diets included more varied portions of bird and fish. The men continued physical labor and deteriorated faster. By mid-1915, most of the soldiers had died. Arnault maintained his command. He continued to enforce routines. The remaining men were ill. Food sources had not expanded. The bird population remained stable, but hunting them required energy the colonists no longer had. The situation was understood but not discussed in terms of permanence. Arnault refused to abandon the post. On May 29, 1915, Arnault saw a shape on the horizon. He believed it was a ship. He gathered the 3 remaining soldiers. They took the rowboat and rowed toward the shape. The women watched from shore. There was no ship. Whether Arnault saw an illusion or misidentified a cloud is not recorded. On the water, the 4 men began to argue. The other soldiers attempted to take Arnault's sidearm. There was a struggle. All 4 men fell into the ocean. The waves took them. None returned. Alicia Rovira Arnault was heavily pregnant. That same day, a hurricane formed offshore. The women and children took shelter in the basement of the Arnault house. Alicia went into labor during the storm. She gave birth to a son, Angel. Both survived. The hurricane destroyed most of the remaining structures. When the survivors emerged, the settlement was scattered wreckage. Victoriano Alvarez appeared. He had remained at the lighthouse throughout the colony's decline. He walked to the settlement, gathered the rifles that remained, and threw them into the lagoon. He kept one. He announced that he was now in control. Approximately 15 women and children remained on the island. Alvarez instituted a system. The women were required to obey him. He selected them in sequence for his use. Refusal was met with violence. One woman and her daughter resisted. Alvarez raped and shot both of them. The others complied. He cycled through 3 women regularly. Altagracia Quiroz was 20 years old. Rosalia Nava was 13. Terza Randon was 20. Alvarez moved between them according to preference. The colony's structure dissolved. The women divided the remaining resources. Coconuts were shared. Fish and birds were caught when possible. The children grew weaker. Malnutrition was universal. Alvarez took what he wanted. The women cooked and maintained the minimal settlement. The lighthouse continued to operate. Alvarez enforced submission through the rifle. He threatened Alicia Rovira Arnault specifically. He told her that if a ship appeared, he would kill her before she could speak to anyone. She believed him. Terza Randon was the most vocal in her resistance, but she had no means to act. Months continued. It is uncertain whether Alvarez was psychotic or calculating. His behavior had been isolated before the colony's collapse. Lighthouse keeping was known to produce mental instability. He had also been subjected to discrimination throughout his life. He was of African descent, which carried social stigma in early 20th century Mexico. The isolation and authority may have provided an outlet. The distinction is not documented. For nearly 2 years, the situation remained static. The survivors adapted to the system. Alvarez's control was absolute. The women waited. There was no plan for escape. The children grew older in increments of malnutrition. Some learned to walk late. Angel Arnault, born during the storm, developed rickets. His legs did not support him. He could not walk. In mid-July 1917, Alvarez decided to change his pattern. He had not pursued Alicia Rovira Arnault before, but now he informed her to come to his hut the following morning. Terza Randon was with him when he delivered the message. Randon told Arnault, "Now is the time. On July 18, 1917, Alicia Rovira Arnault and her 7-year-old son, Ramon Arnault Jr., walked to the lighthouse keeper's hut. Teresa Randon accompanied them. Alvarez was outside, roasting a bird. He was in an unusually good mood. He saw Randon and asked why she had returned. He told her to leave. Instead, she entered the hut, took a hammer, and waited. Arnault gave a signal. Randon emerged and struck Alvarez in the head with the hammer. She struck him a second time. Alvarez recovered briefly and reached for an axe. He moved toward Arnault. She called to her son to bring the rifle. He retrieved it. Randon struck Alvarez again. He fell. She took a knife and stabbed the body repeatedly. She slashed his face. He was dead. Ramon Arnault Jr. looked at the horizon. He saw a ship. It was real. The USS Yorktown was an American gunboat. It was patrolling the Pacific coast for German submarines. The United States had entered the First World War. There were rumors of secret German radio stations in the Pacific Islands. Clipperton Island was a logical location to investigate. Commander Harlan Page Perrill ordered the ship to circle the atoll. The crew attempted to send a boat ashore. Sharks and rough surf prevented landing. The boat returned to the ship. The women on the island watched the retreat. They discussed drowning themselves in the lagoon. The Americans made a second attempt. This time they reached the beach. Lieutenant Kerr met Alicia Rovira Arnault. She indicated frantically that the survivors wanted to leave immediately. Kerr and several sailors accompanied the women to collect possessions. Others inspected the lighthouse. The children were visibly malnourished. Angel Arnault, 2 years old, could not walk. An 11-year-old boy named Francisco Ura carried him on his back to the boat. The Americans counted 3 women and 8 children. They loaded them onto the Yorktown. Alvarez's body was left on the island. Commander Perrill wrote to his wife that the story was harrowing. Lieutenant Kerr filed an official report that omitted all details concerning the lighthouse keeper. Both men agreed to protect the survivors from legal consequences. The Yorktown suspended its patrol and set course for Salina Cruz, Mexico. The Americans sent a wireless message ahead to the British consulate to locate family members. The voyage took 4 days. The survivors experienced seasickness but adjusted to the ship. The sailors gave them food and treated the children. On July 22, 1917, the Yorktown reached Salina Cruz. A boat approached carrying Felix Rovira, the father of Alicia Rovira Arnault. He had inquired repeatedly about his daughter's fate. Mexican authorities had told him all the colonists were dead. He was informed otherwise only when the Yorktown's message arrived. The reunion occurred on deck. Several sailors cried. The crew had established a fund for the survivors. The money was given to them. Local citizens held a reception for the sailors at a hotel. Commander Perrill initially estimated Alicia Rovira Arnault's age as 40. She was 29. The other women were younger. The years on Clipperton had compressed their physical appearance. 11 of the original colonists survived. Their story circulated along the western coast of Mexico. Neither Perrill nor Kerr disclosed the details of Alvarez's death for 17 years. In 1931, King Victor Emmanuel III of Italy, acting as arbitrator, awarded Clipperton Island to France. The decision ended the territorial dispute between France and Mexico. France has maintained nominal sovereignty since. The island has hosted occasional scientific expeditions and military detachments, but no permanent settlement has been attempted. Ramon Arnault Jr. returned to Clipperton in 1980 as part of a biological survey led by Jacques Cousteau. He was 70 years old. He expressed satisfaction at seeing his birthplace again despite the trauma associated with it. The island remains uninhabited. The lighthouse still stands. The structures built by the British Mining Company have collapsed. The crabs and seabirds continue their cycles. The lagoon holds water that cannot be drunk. The Pacific moves around the atoll without reference to what occurred there. Human beings can endure isolation, but endurance is not the same as survival. The Clipperton colonists adapted to scarcity and violence because no alternative existed. The structure of their collapse was predictable. Malnutrition, disease, abandonment, and the concentration of power in a single individual followed logical patterns. What remained afterward was a small number of people who had outlasted circumstances that killed the others. The documentation of their experience is incomplete. Some aspects are uncertain. The emotional interior of their years cannot be reconstructed. What is known is the sequence of events, the names of some of the survivors, and the fact that they were forgotten for more than 1,000 days on a piece of coral in the Pacific Ocean. When rescue came, it was accidental. The women were prepared to die. Instead, they left. Clipperton Island is still there. It continues to exist as it did before people arrived and as it has since they left. The ocean surrounds it. The distance remains the same.